Once again, my friends, thank you for tuning in. You're listening to Panzer Unleashed. And most people don't realize how close they are to chaos because they've never had it knock on their fucking door without a warning. And that right there, my friend, is the problem, because the world doesn't announce when it's about to flip the fucking table over and smack you in the face. It doesn't work like that. You know, it comes when you're distracted, when you're comfortable, tired, or convinced that tomorrow is guaranteed. They think readiness is something you turn on when the fucking news gets bad, or when sirens get close, or fucking even when something finally even happens. You know, it's already too late, because readiness isn't a fucking switch you just flip, people. It's a state you live in constantly. And this episode isn't about fear. It's not about playing soldier. And it's definitely not about fantasy. Because real preparedness, my friend, is quiet. It's disciplined and built long before anything ever goes fucking wrong. And this is Panzer Unleashed, people, and today we're going to go ahead and talk about the importance of staying tactical, staying disciplined, and staying ready for the conflict at any given time. Not because you fucking want it, because reality does not care what the fuck you want. So let's go ahead and get into it, people. You know, and when you hear the word tactical, and their minds immediately go into the wrong direction, most people, because they think it's about equipment or fucking posture or looking intimidating. When in reality, the most tactical thing you can develop is your fucking mind. Because if you're thinking collapse under pressure, everything else collapse with it. Staying ready, it's not about acting aggressive, and it's not about walking around angry at the fucking world, you know. It's about understanding that life does not operate on fairness, and conflict does not wait until you're fucking ready. You know, most people live in a state of mental sleep, as I call it, where they basically move through their day assuming that basically the environment is safe by default, and that other people are predictable, and that the system will basically always function the way that they're supposed to. And that assumption alone has gotten more people killed and hurt than anything else. Because being tactical, it starts with awareness, people. Not obsession, but awareness that is calm, deliberate, and constantly scanning without panic. Because when you actually pay attention out there, you begin to notice patterns, changes, and even inconsistencies that everyone else kind of just dismisses. And you notice when something feels off before you can logically explain why. And that instinct isn't paranoia, my friend. It's your brain processing information faster than fucking words can catch up. And the problem is, most people, the silence that instinct because they don't want to seem rude. You know, they silence it. They don't want to stand out. And they don't want to fucking believe that something bad could actually happen to them. And that basically denial is actually what keeps them unprepared. It keeps them there. You know, readiness is accepting that the world is unpredictable without letting that truth turn you into a fucking nervous wreck. Because panic, it makes you fucking sloppy. Oh, jittery Joe, you know? And sloppy people make bad decisions under fucking pressure. And a tactical mindset, it stays calm. Not because it's fearless, but because it's already accepted the possibility of conflict and made peace with acting decisively. And staying ready means that your body is capable of responding to stress without immediately shutting down, which is why physical conditioning, people, it matters far more than fucking people want it to admit, because not because you need to be elite, but because fatigue, weakness, and poor health, it fucking strips away options when you need them the most. And, if the stress makes your breathing shallow, if exhaustion clouds your judgment, or if discomfort makes you mentally quit, then conflict will overwhelm you before it even fucking begins. And make no mistake, people, conflict doesn't always fucking look for dramatic. It doesn't, because sometimes it's sudden, it's quiet, it's confusing, and it's over before your fucking brain catches up, which is why discipline matters more than anything. Your emotional control is one of the most overlooked aspects of readiness, because people like to fucking imagine themselves acting like a hero, but the reality is that anger, the fear, and the ego sabotage more outcomes than skill ever saves people. Because a tactical person understands that not every situation needs to be fucking confronted. Not every challenge needs to be answered. And not every fucking insult deserves a fucking response, people. Because survival, it's not about proving something. It's about making the smartest decision available at the fucking time. And the ego convinces people to escalate, when they should just fucking digress. And pride convinces people to stay when they should fucking leave. And impatient, that right there convinces people to act before they fully understand what the fuck is happening. And all three of those mistakes are compound under pressure. And, being ready also means understanding consequences beyond the moment. Because, the aftermath of any conflict, often lasts longer than fucking the conflict itself. And if you haven't thought about like legal, social, and long-term consequences, then you're not thinking tactically. You're thinking emotionally. Because a disciplined mindset, people, it doesn't just focus on winning the moment. It focuses on surviving what comes after it. Because freedom, stability, and control over your future matters just as much as getting through the immediate situation. And like I said, people, preparedness also means having options. Because a single plan is not a fucking plan. It's a hope. And hope collapses the moment something doesn't go exactly as expected. And options give you flexibility. And that flexibility, my friends, gives you time. And time gives you the ability to make better decisions under pressure. Which is why most people who panic usually feel trapped. While people who are prepared also, they seem to find a way forward. And training, real training, is what turns chaos into something manageable. And not because it removes fucking danger, but because it reduces hesitation. And that hesitation is deadly, people. Because in any high-stress environment, it's no good. You do not rise to the occasion when things go wrong. You default to whatever habits that you've built. When things were calm, that's where you feel more in tune with yourself. That discipline has to exist, people, before it's tested. Break out of that fucking shell. And because staying ready also It means accepting that you are responsible for yourself, because no system responds instantly. You know, no authority is going to prevent every emergency. You know, and like I said, no one is obligated to arrive in time to fix your situation. It's just, it doesn't work that way. You know, the reality isn't meant to scare you. You know, it's not. You know, it's meant to wake you up, people. Because once you accept responsibility, you stop waiting for permission to be prepared. You stop outsourcing your safety to fucking luck, and you stopped assuming that nothing bad will happen just because it hasn't happened yet. Fuck that. You know, being tactical doesn't mean you expect the worst. You know, it just means that you respect the possibilities of it. And that respect keeps you alert without making you paranoid. That's the fucking goal, people. Not to live in fear, but to live in clarity. Because that clarity allows you to enjoy life without being a fragile little bitch. And that strength is going to allow you to move through uncertainty without collapsing. And most people will never do this work because it requires consistency, humility, and effort without applause. And they would rather fucking mock other people than admit they're vulnerable. And they'll call it extreme, unnecessary, or fucking obsessive. You know, right up until that moment, they wish they had fucking taken it a little more seriously. Trust me, I live this shit, people. You know, readiness is invisible until it isn't. You know, and when it finally matters, that readiness, it matters completely. And like I said, people, the world doesn't fall apart all at once. It fucking cracks slowly, quietly, and without warning. And the people who survive, they're not the loudest or the toughest. They're the ones who were already prepared before anyone else realized it mattered. Staying tactical is not about living in conflict. It's about being capable of handling it when it happens. And it's about discipline, people. Awareness, responsibility, and the refusal to be fucking caught completely off guard by reality. And you don't build readiness because you're afraid. You build it because you respect yourself, your future, and the people who rely on you. Once again, this is Panzer Unleashed. And the message is simple, people, even if the work isn't. Stay sharp when others are asleep, and stay disciplined when others get sloppy. Stay ready even before it happens. Because when chaos finally shows up uninvited, you won't have time to prepare. You'll only have time to act. And what you do in that moment, my friends, will be decided by what you built long before it arrived. This is Panzer, live from Hack Studios. Until next time, my friends, over and out.